Hello, my name is Clinton and today I'm going to explore an often debated question in our industry. Is cold lay tar any good? This debate has varying answers depending on the intended user, their past experience with it and what they plan to use it for. Before we answer this though, let's get one thing straight. Cold lay tar is generally a historic terminology used in the surfacing industry for most types of cold mix bitumen based surfacing materials, often used for pothole repairs, which are generally supplied in 25 kilo bags or buckets, sometimes even loose bulk loads. In recent years though, these types of materials are more commonly known as either delayed set macadams or permanent cold lay surfacing materials. And this is where the answers to the original question begin to vary. A short answer to the question would be that cold mix bitumen based surfacing materials do what they say on the tin or the bag, if the installer does what it says on the tin. Maybe you've experienced buying a bag of cold tar from a local merchant to repair a pothole in your driveway and struggle to figure out the fine print instructions on the packaging, including weird and wonderful advice about laying a sheet of timber over the repair and vigorously driving a wheel of your car over to compact it. Or maybe you've seen local council operatives throwing a cold tar material into a waterlogged pothole on your street, stamping it with their heavy safety boots to flatten it before jumping back into their van 2 minutes later. All joking aside, delayed set macadams and permanent cold lay surfacing materials are made with specially developed binders designed to react in certain ways with different environments. So it is important that the manufacturer's installation method is followed correctly to achieve a desirable outcome. Now let's look at the two main types of cold mix bitumen based surfacing materials in more detail to highlight their intended uses, unique benefits and known limits. Probably the oldest and most commonly used cold lay material is known as delayed set macadam, or DSM for short, which is typically produced using minerals, graded aggregates and a modified bitumen binder, which delays the curing process, keeping material workable for longer periods. DSMs are more commonly used as a short-term repair by local authorities and their contractors for defects and potholes, minimising public claims whilst they wait for a permanent repair to be carried out. Also used by utility contractors as a temporary reinstatement for road openings whilst they wait for effective mobilisation of plant and equipment to carry out permanent hot repair. In some cases, if properly compacted, delayed set macadams can result in a permanent repair if the location is not subject to heavy traffic. In such situations, the installer would be required to cut back the edges of the patch to a defect-free surrounding surface and properly seal the edges before laying the DSM. Another option for repairing defects, potholes and reinstatements are PCSMs, short for permanent cold lay surfacing materials, which have become more popular in recent years as they're designed for a permanent repair and are approved by the Highways Authority Product Approval Scheme, which is known as HAPAS in the industry. Generally, permanent cold lay surfacing materials are made using higher quality binders containing solvents which evaporate after compaction, causing the material to harden. Some PCSMs, however, contain reactive binders which cure when activated with water. These hardening and curing characteristics mean that the repair can be trafficked immediately, which is one of the main reasons these types of materials are very popular with reactive maintenance crews. PCSMs, however, tend to have a poor reputation for early failure, mainly due to incorrect installation and sometimes due to user expectations being beyond the realistic limits of the material. Most permanent cold lay materials are designed to provide higher placement adhesion than traditional materials and in some cases will last a reasonable length of time if well compacted, for example into a wet pothole without edge cut back and sealing, or even in shallow defects with minimal preparation. The key for these types of repairs though is to apply almost excessive mechanical compaction but avoiding migration of the binder to the surface or crushing of the aggregate. For guaranteed permanent results, permanent cold lay surfacing material should be mechanically compacted after cutting back of the edges to sound material, and following cutback of the edges it's important to ensure that the underlying substrate is well compacted to avoid subsidence. To ensure good adhesion to the edges and base of the repair, a cold spray sealer should be applied first. If the repair is deep, then attention should be taken to consult the manufacturer's instructions regarding application in layers. As a guide though, this type of material should be compacted in uniform layers of up to 40 mm deep, allowing 30% extra in depth before compaction. And a final step in the process, which is recommended to stop water ingress into the joints of the repair, is to apply a cold or hot melt overbanding material immediately after compaction of the surface layer. Obviously there are limits to how these types of materials can be used, and it's not to be assumed that by following the correct application method a complete road would be able to be resurfaced with a permanent cold lay surfacing material. Material cost alone would disqualify such a proposal, apart from the fact that they're not intended for such situations. Feedback from the industry, weighing up all aspects, including cost of material, mobilisation of plant, compared to hot material, would suggest that anything up to 1 square metre of a repair at a single location is a good guide for deciding between whether to use a permanent cold lay or a traditional hot method. In summary, when correct application methods are not followed, such as being thrown into a defective pothole with little or no compaction, no matter how permanent it's designed to be, it will more often than not be destined to fail. Along with this, when used beyond their limits, such as for large surface restatements, cold lay surface materials will be costly. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you found this interesting. Please reach out to us for any further information or advice.